Good Saturday morning. So every weekend I like to do videos. I know there's not too many people watching at this point in time, but there's always important things going on in the world. The daily lives of each and every one of us, we have our own challenges that we have to work on. But there are things that are going on that are much bigger than each and every one of us. And at the same time, the needs of every person need to be met at some point in time. At least the good and honest, hardworking people, the decent people, they need to have their needs met. And I guess this video is about. Really, I want this video to be about the state of the world and the state of America. Now, what a complex topic that is, right? How can one man address that and provide a solution for that? But we have a couple of major incidents that have happened recently. And again, there's so many important things happening that could easily take over the news cycle. Right now we have the World Cup going on. We have major sporting events going on. Very interesting times in the land of sports. Means nothing, really nothing compared to everything else going on with geopolitics. Hopefully, we get this Iran deal signed, sealed, delivered, done with. We need to have relative peace in the world for the economy, for the stability of the average man, woman, and child. Uh, and obviously, we have Elon Musk becoming the world's first trillionaire. Now, politicians, there's a lot of politicians that are grandstanding and bullshitting and trying to say Elon is the bad guy for now having a nominal, I wouldn't even say a nominal, he has a nominal value on paper of $1 trillion because of his equity, right? And his companies. And it's a huge milestone, not just if you're fascinated by the wealth of individuals, but it shows you that hard work can get you pretty much to infinity and beyond. And that used to be the motto of America. Elon came from South Africa, but he's really probably at this point the greatest businessman of all time, the greatest entrepreneur of all time, because you don't get to where he is at with just one company. He has so many different companies that he's been responsible for, that he's had a hand in. He's an innovator, and he's become a controversial figure. Maybe justifiably, but I think he's saying a lot of things based on what he says. And a lot of times, I'll just say I think a lot of people agree with him, and in a different time and place, everything he's saying would just be common sense or considered to be common sense. But anyway, yeah, dumbasses like Elizabeth Warren. They're saying let's tax his wealth now, and this is the same woman that let Spirit Airlines go bankrupt because she wanted to block the merger with JetBlue, I believe. One of the reasons they went bankrupt because she tried to claim, from what I understand, that that was somehow anti-competitive, even though she's too stupid to realize, or just bullshitting people that they're not competitors. They were actually in the same line of work. They were, if anything, competitors to larger airlines. These are two budget airlines that wanted to assemble together to have an alternative network against the big airlines. But anyway, Elizabeth Warren's a retard. I think it should be fine to call her that. And she's, again, another old parasitic politician that we need to get out of office. I don't know how she's been in office for as long as she has been. I actually don't know how long she's been there, but I mean, at her age, she has no business still being there. Very few politicians should still be there at that age. I think the president is doing all right. Relatively speaking, we've seen worse. Not the first time we've had an 80-year-old president. I think Biden was the first. I think Reagan was borderline. Um, anyway, look, these politicians, I saw a post just this morning talking about how I've seen a lot of posts. Millionaires, I believe Elizabeth Warren counts as a millionaire. Millionaires getting mad at billionaires and trillionaires just moving the goalpost. They're just trying to get stupid people to vote for them, and their terrible policies. Because the other post I saw was people are crying about a trillionaire, but they're not crying about the $40 trillion in nominal value. There's more than that, but the federal deficit's something like 40 trillion. And who's paying for that, right? Again, we just keep moving the goalposts to the next generation, so they have to deal with the problems that never get dealt with, and they're not. They're always, almost always, worse equipped to deal with the problems. I don't think there's anything wrong with Elon being a trillionaire. I think he's the right person for that. He has the value of that and equity in his companies. He's not exactly going out on yacht parties and wasting money on bullshit. The ultra wealthy, they rarely ever spend that type of money. Not to say that they can't spend some of it, but they get that way because they're doing something for humanity. Look at the story of all the millionaires, including, I think, the guy who was working as a welder, an immigrant from Mexico, who is said to now be a millionaire because of his stock in SpaceX, working there throughout the years. It's a great story. Cafeteria workers supposedly are millionaires now because of Elon. Great story about him generating wealth for other people, investors. I made some money on the IPO too. Just as a brief aside, I think the flipping policy for IPOs is dumb. So I didn't mind flipping some shares because other people will do the same thing. You can be a goody two-shoes, but where does that leave you when a lot of other investors end up dumping their shares in the open market? If everybody followed the rules, so would I, but I'm not playing by the rules for a game that's rigged against me. But I do think the SpaceX IPO is a great opportunity for the future of that company, just maybe not right now with the price being so high relative to its earnings and valuation. But yeah, we have to stop letting these politicians try to gaslight people into believing that we should raise taxes on anybody instead of lowering taxes and lowering regulations will actually help bring down the cost of everything. Lowering spending from the government and money printing will increase the value of the dollar, because the dollar would be doing just fine if not for all the inflation. And inflation is a uniquely policy-driven event by the government, and with the arbitrary increase in prices with something like, and rare events, the economic shock of something like the Strait of Hormuz crisis right now, arbitrarily raising the price of gasoline because of this forced scarcity, this temporary scarcity, which then can put pressure on all the other sectors, because people have to now move more money into the cost of goods because of the transport cost, and that's taken away from their ability to do other things. So it's fucking the economy up. But it's the decisions made by government has nothing to do with the private wealth of private individuals or companies. So there's not too much to say about that. Don't listen to politicians that are economically illiterate or just dishonest like Elizabeth Warren is, perhaps both, or Bernie Sanders. These old farts, they have a lot of money themselves. They're also from the baby boomer generation, so no doubt they inherited a lot of wealth on their way to being crooked politicians and dishonest politicians. So don't listen to these people. there's hardly a good politician to vote for these days. It's actually bizarre that um, I read something about the spending for the midterms in 2026 is the largest ever, supposedly, and I don't know why, because who's even bothering to turn out to vote for these idiots? They're all worthless. Um, and in other news, we've got the Carmelo Anthony, not the fucking basketball player, but some piece of shit who brought a knife to school, or for some reason he had a knife. I don't know if he brought the knife to school actually, but he had a knife of some kind and stabbed that kid at the track meet, I believe, at his school campus. Um, and his family, if all the reports are true, his family is almost as bad as he is, if not worse. Somehow people were donating to this jackass, and he received, or his family received, or whatever his whatever account he had that was receiving money from donations. They allegedly got a lot of money from donations, and allegedly pissed it away on a bunch of bullshit. And supposedly they couldn't hire a good lawyer, not to say that they had a chance in court anyway, because the evidence is overwhelming against him. How could you not? How could you not rule against him? And I don't know. I don't really know what real life is, but it's always funny when there's a black person involved in a crime, whether they're a partial victim or the criminal. There's a bunch of black people coming out and trying to defend that and condone that. And all I have to say about that is, in America, we are supposed to be a country that's very disciplined. We believe in law and order, and we stick up for the rights of the individual. No matter who is committing the crime, you need to prosecute that person to the full extent of the law and have no preferential treatment. We know that sometimes rich people can get away with certain things, maybe not murder. I don't know if anyone can get away with murder. Um, I don't think anybody should, unless it's somehow justified. But this is not a justified homicide. But I just think it's bizarre that um, we have a society that will complain about the price of goods going up. We will have a society that blames this on politicians. Again, I just went on a diatribe, not really a diatribe, just an honest lecture about what's causing the prices to go up. It is politicians, but you need to point your finger at the right politicians, because not every politician is causing inflation. If you're blaming Trump for the problems, you're an idiot. Trump is the best president we've ever had for the stock market, and there is no better way to fight inflation than investing in assets. But people will complain about the cost of things and then donate to a murderer, now a convicted murderer. And then there are people that are supposedly sending death threats to the family of the victim. So we have it all backwards. Not to say anyone should be receiving death threats, but certainly shouldn't be the victim's family that's receiving hate. And certainly the money should be going to the victim's family, if anything, not to an obvious murderer's defense fund. Deserves no defense fund. Deserves what the state would provide, I'm sure. Unfortunately, we have to pay for his bullshit one way or another as a society. But I love how people can find money to send money to a convicted murderer and his family, but they want to complain about the price of groceries. Well, your priorities are fucked up. And yeah, we didn't see riots in the street. Not that we've seen riots so far. I think Matt Walsh is correct. You don't see riots like that organically in many cases, not on a big scale. there's definitely some people engineering these riots and these protests. They're all fucking bullshit, and it's a psyop of sorts. Um, and you see some really stupid people on social media, but it's social media. There's always you don't know what's real and what's for the cameras sometimes. But anyway, you've got. I just want to talk about this in the video too. We didn't protest or riot when Arena Zarutska died, even though we should have been, and not against black people, but against the justice system for letting a thug and perhaps a fucking schizo, whatever the guy's name that was that killed Irina Zarutska, shit like that. And what we're seeing in other countries, going back to Elon Musk, he's one of the few people that's outspoken against the violent crimes being committed in England and across Europe with all these migrants. These aren't crimes being committed by the native population. They're being committed by the third world coming over here. And it's fine to let these people stay in their own countries, but we have competition against these people for living space in our own countries. Immigrants that have no business being here because they don't want to assimilate. They don't want to contribute positively to society. We have worldwide welfare programs that should not exist. Again, another bad policy by politicians that just want to take your tax money and say that they're putting it here, and then they really want to put it other places. It's all connected in some way or another. And it's propaganda against Elon Musk, not necessarily because he's Elon Musk, but it's just the same playbook. Let's villainize the rich, even though the politicians are getting payouts in many cases from the rich, whether it's through lobbying of sorts. It may all be illegal under the loopholes, but they're getting money one way or another from campaign contributions from these people. They're liars. And so we have the problem in America is we're not working together as a united country, and all of the united countries, the United Kingdom, the United States, we're not working together as a united people, and that's causing these fractures. All right, we have to have a strong foundation as a group of people working together, and we cannot be divided by race or by politics or any of this dumb shit. We need to have sensible people that can call a spade a fucking spade, and we got to stop with the tribalism. The only tribalism that we should have is kind of the shit you see in sports when people do try to come together and put their hand over their heart, which I think you should be optional, but you see people being patriotic for the country when you see sports. There was a gentleman that scored at least one goal last night when USA beat Paraguay 4-1. And it was actually funny because we had extra time and scored an additional goal that was completely unnecessary in the extra time, 90 minutes plus whatever the fuck. But one of the guys that scored a goal to put us up in regular time, he's a dude that was born in America to, I think, Nigerian parents. I think he grew up in England or something like that. Had a chance to represent multiple different countries, but chose America and has represented us proudly at the World Cup, scoring a goal to help us beat our first matchup in the World Cup. Made some money on that. So don't bet against America is the takeaway. And don't bet against Elon Musk. And I want to say don't bet against, I just want to say don't bet against America. But you got a lot of people that are Americans that are betting against America for no good reason. So I would say we need to get these shit politicians out of here and stop listening to fucking idiots on social media. We need to listen to people that are actually have constructive viewpoints and are making progress with a good track record of being correct about things.